My name is Chris Kelly, and allow me to welcome you to the Core Restore program. In this presentation, we are going to demystify the factors behind why you may not have a flat stomach and look at the reasons why it's so much more than just what we do in the gym or what we do with exercise. And really, it comes down to posture, how we breathe, what we eat. All of these things are factors. And, with this presentation, my goal is to not only help you to develop a flat stomach momentarily, but give you the tools to develop it for a lifetime. This is the culmination of about 6 years of work on my part, and I'm really proud to present this to you today. And so, first of all, who am I? All right, I've trained over 5,000 women in my career, which has spanned over 10 years. I've worked in as a trainer in New York City, Los Angeles, here in Florida, really all across the country. And for me, I've had sort of an obsession with core training since really the first day I stepped into the gym, and I'll tell you a little story about that. But my credentials: I'm a I'm certified through the National Academy of Sports Medicine as a corrective exercise specialist, performance enhancement specialist. I'm functional movement screen certified, neurokinetic testing, NSCA, CSCS. So there's a bunch of letters by my name, but that's not the most important thing. The key for me is that I've tested this method on clients from celebrities, as you can see here, to individuals, and it's something that I'm really proud of. Now, the reason that, a question that I get a lot is why is a dude interested in helping women, especially women that have had children or post pregnancy, develop a flat stomach? And really, for me, it began with my first day owning my gym. Okay, and if you look at this picture up here on the right, these are a bunch of my clients that started with me on day one. Literally, I think this is like day three. That's my mom there on the far left. And for us, I started doing boot camps when I first moved back to my hometown, opened my gym. And one thing that I frequently noticed is, I'd have women doing like jumping jacks and jump rope and that kind of thing. And one day, a woman said to me, Chris, I'm going to pee my pants. I need to stop and go to the bathroom. I'd never heard this before. And so I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. And so she kept going. She said, no, Chris, really, this is about to happen. And I said, no, keep going, keep going. Because I thought it was, somebody trying to make excuses. And then it actually happened. And it was, I felt so badly for her. It was, embarrassing for everybody. But the point being is that, you don't know what you don't know. And what I realized at that point is just how many of the physical factors, and this was a new mom, as have been many, many of my clients. And, it made me realize how little control I think that we have, especially after we give birth and that kind of thing. And so that really led me to do the research, to look into the reasons why we establish or we gain things like urinary incontinence and pelvic floor issues and things like that after birth, and really how that relates to getting a flat stomach. And you'll find that those two things are really connected. But after my long ramble here, I hope that gives you a better idea of me and sort of why we do what we do today. And so the first step in developing a flat stomach is understanding why you don't have it in the first place. Okay, and nutrition is a whole nother discussion. Obviously there are a ton of resources to give you information on that, as far as what to eat to lose body fat, and abs are made in the kitchen, all that sort of thing. But when we talk about just posture, okay, and we talk about just the factors that predispose us to not having a flat stomach, we look at things like our sedentary lifestyle, okay, and the factors that have predisposed us as human beings to become more deconditioned over the last 100 years. If you look at 100 years ago, we were all, standing up, we were working in factories. This is pre-technological revolution, whereas today the average American sits for 8 to 10 hours a day. Okay, the average American wears shoes with heels in them. Okay, and if we look at these factors, they all create this idea of where we have this very like upright, evolved human being, to where we sort of devolve into this caveman like posture here, more so on the right. Okay, and this is, interestingly enough, this is what we see in individuals that are 70, 80, 90 years old, that look around, that are walking around like they're in a C curve because gravity has pulled them into that position. This is happening earlier and earlier in our lifetime because we're adopting habits that cause us to do so. By the same token, we see an individual here that develops what we call an anterior pelvic tilt, where the bigger individual here on our right has this large arch in their back. Okay, and what heels and sitting a lot predisposes to is this idea of an anterior pelvic tilt, where there's this large again arch in our back that gives us the appearance of a gut, even whether or not we actually have a gut. So, while this person looks obese, and that's one factor that could cause that, these other factors as well get us out of the right position to have a flat stomach in the first place. All right, so posture is the first thing that we look at because it is the most important thing. And so when we look at all of these, and I'm going to pick on women a little bit in this presentation because culturally, you guys have a lot more that predisposes us or predisposes you to the inability to have a flat stomach and things like back pain, neck pain, shoulder pain. So if we look at all of these factors, for example, women traditionally are taught to stand and sit with their feet and knees together because it's more ladylike. Unfortunately, doing that is going to create this idea of flat feet here that we see down here on the bottom. Okay, and so that's one thing. Women also wear heels, okay, and cross their legs. Once again, reinforcing the idea of being forward on our toes, and putting our hips into what is called internal rotation. All of those things, in addition to this sitting posture here on the bottom right, puts us into what we call an anterior pelvic tilt. So we have this large arch in our back. And so if we look at the position of a pelvis and what we call anterior pelvic tilt, okay, this is somebody whose hips are tight, okay, and so therefore their hips are being pulled down, whereas their stomach is forced to stick out as a result, okay, and so they have this large arch in what we call their lumbar spine, their lower back. And so if we look at this person, they might not even have a gut, but because their back is arched, it's forcing their stomach to stick out. Okay, not only does that look bad, but it doesn't put our abs in a good position to strengthen. Okay, whereas if we look at this person, what we call neutral pelvis, everything is lined up. Okay, so we have the hips lined up over the upper back, and everything looks straighter. Okay, the belly is flatter, and it just gives a more pleasing physical appearance, as well as helping our abs to work better. Okay, and so this is one of the big things in our program that we want to reestablish is what we call neutral pelvis, because if you're doing core training in this anterior pelvic tilted position, you're not working your abs nearly as much because the function of the abs is to bring us back into neutral. So if we look at Beyonce, okay, who is one of the fittest, best looking people in the world, okay, again, like she is fabulous. She looks great and everything else. But when we look at this picture here of her here on the left, I mean, she's very thin, but by the same token, look at this huge arch in her back. And yes, she has a great butt, all of that as well, but it appears to give her a bit of a gut, whereas we know that if she lined herself back up at a pelvic neutral, it would be a little bit less so. You can also look at the about 6-inch stilettos there on her feet. Okay, and so think of yourself, okay, and when you put yourself in a pair of heels, it's going to tip you forward into this position all the time. As a result, this is going to develop what we call anterior weight shift, where if we look at this individual here on the left who is standing straight, her weight's borne over her heels. Okay, so she's standing completely vertical. Whereas when she's in this anterior weight shift, which is caused by wearing heels, she's going to get this these compensations, such as her back arching, she's forced to lean forward, her neck's going to come forward. So all of this postural crap occurs as a result of standing forward on her toes all the time. The other thing that's going to happen is that when we're leaning forward on our toes all the time, because our calves are tight due to wearing heels and that sort of thing, our butt's not going to be as active. Okay, so that structure as well is going to start to become weaker. It's going to start to atrophy. There are a lot of people that I can just tell when I look at them that they're in this position because they have what I call no butt syndrome. Okay, because there's no butt, right? Because their glutes are literally doing no work. These are oftentimes going to be the same people that have knee pain. Okay, because they're shifted forward onto their toes all the time. So their quads and their hip flexors and all that stuff in the front is really gripping to squeeze everything together. And so if we put these two things together, we can see that this idea of anterior pelvic tilt, the cause of knee pain in many cases, the fact that we don't have a butt, all of this stuff is related. Okay, and so the best one of the best cues I can give somebody to improve their abs, their posture, all of that stuff is simply shift your weight back into your heels and stand taller. You should be able to lift your toes up off the ground, and you'll get back in this more vertical standing position. So again, these are really the big rocks as far as why we're not developing abs, why we might have a gut when otherwise we're fit and healthy. And so that's really the problem with core training is that we can't core train from a bad position. Okay, and so we start to get into this position where we see again this anterior pelvic tilt. We might have, and it presents differently in different people. We might be in a sway back position where our torso is lazy forward, and then our hips are arched, or our back is arched, or we might just try to be standing in like a more military-like posture where again our back is still arched. But the bottom line is this position of anterior pelvic tilt and the postural compensations that occur from it create things like anxiety, low energy levels, because we can't breathe in that position. All right, when my back is arched, my diaphragm or my breathing muscles are not allowed to descend and ascend nearly as well. So all of these problems occur as a result. Flat feet, plantar fasciitis, low back pain, neck tightness, all of that. Okay, and again, it's not so important that we read all of them off, but just understanding that this is the cause of a lot of stuff. Whereas, when I get myself back into pelvic neutral, or I get my client back into pelvic neutral, they're going to have more strength. They're going to sleep better oxygen delivery. And so, point being is that not only is this type of core training going to put you is going to make you ripped up, it's going to, toned. It's going to also put you into a better position for life in general, okay, and help to stave off things like osteoarthritis, anxiety, all of these conditions that are caused oftentimes by the fact that, we're not able to get the right nutrients to the right places. The other consideration to make with exercise in particular is how we train our cores in this position. Okay, and so if we're looking at these two stretches, common yoga positions, okay, we have warrior pose here, or a derivative of it, and then we have a back bend, which I'm not even sure what that's called. But the point being is that if you look at both of these individuals, their back is in this huge arch. Okay, and again, this potentially we're not using the right muscles as a result of that. We're starting to hang off ligaments and joints and things that we're not stretching muscles anymore. We're using passive structures as a result, and that's not a good thing. That's not training our core to do anything. That's not necessarily stretching any particular muscles. So it's really important that we establish neutral as a result, or before we do any of this stuff. The other thing is, is a plank a plank? Does it do what we needed to do? Okay, we look at again, what we want is somebody that is in a neutral position, whereas, for a lot of people that I see doing planks and core training in general in the gym, we have this huge arch in their back at all times where it looks like this person is doing the worm, as a result, or some bad dance move, as opposed to actually training your core. Again, it's funny because I pulled this off of a popular abs challenge that I found on Google. And so this information really is not widespread. And so really a lot of the best advice with core training, just first and foremost, before we get into anything else, is what not to do. And so don't do stuff like this. So the question is, do you fall into this category? And unfortunately, I'm going to argue that you probably do, just because, you live life, you wear shoes, you go to work, you sit down. We all do these things. But the bottom line is, these are just a couple ways to illustrate, the idea that, these postures are pretty repetitive with us all. And so number one, can you touch your toes? And if you can't, that demonstrates the fact that, our calves, our hamstrings, all the muscles of the backside of our body are tight as a result, oftentimes, of being in this anterior weight shift where we're shifted forward onto our toes all the time. Another one would be, try putting your back against a wall. Can you place your hand under the small of your low back? If you can't, if you can, and we have this large arch in our back where there's a lot of space between the wall and your low back, that means that we're in this anterior pelvic tilted position. The other thing is, can you stand on one leg for more than 15 seconds? If not, or if you find that you're having a lot of trouble, that means that your hip muscles are not necessarily doing the work necessary to keep you in place. And, again, oftentimes that's going to be as a result of just non-use. And then finally, Can you squat down to parallel with your feet fairly close together without coming forward onto your toes? And oftentimes, that's going to be a tell for tight calves. We have to come forward onto our toes because we don't have the mobility to sit back on our heels. And again, don't paralyze yourself analyzing these things. That we all deal with these issues. I'm just using this slide to illustrate the fact that you're not achieving your full core training potential, if you don't have this stuff. Okay, and that's a big part of our program, is to reestablish these things, because once you do, you're going to be in the right position to get the right result, and that's what we want to do. And so the goals of our program, number one, was we're going to give you some simple modifications to daily posture to bear weight in the right position. I'm going to make it very simple for you in this presentation, and I'm going to help you to know just what to do. And from there, we're going to teach you to breathe and use your core to reestablish, the right pelvic position to do core training. And then from there, I'm going to give you the most powerful exercises known to man, or at least to me, to achieve the flat stomach that you've always wanted, to maintain it, and also to stave off things like low back pain, shoulder and neck issues, different things like that. So I don't want you to think of this as just the core training program. I want you to think of this as a life training program. It's going to help you to feel and move better, as well as to have an authentically flat stomach for a lifetime, and that really is our goal. So the first step in developing a flat stomach is really to change the habits which lead to crappy posture. Okay, and for us, I want you to think about all of the things that you do throughout a daily basis in which you spend more than, say, like 20 minutes in one position. And for most people, that's going to be standing repetitively. It's going to be sitting down a lot. It may be, if you work in an office and you have a calendar that you have to look at frequently, maybe you're rotated a little bit to the right. You're much more likely to develop pain and itises in these positions just because you're in these positions all the time. And so, they say the best posture is one that is constantly changing. And what I like to have my clients do is just set a clock for 20 minutes and just simply just get up and do the opposite. So if you're flexed over a computer where you're typing or whatever it may be, or you're just maybe crossing your leg to one side, all you do is just stand up, kick your legs out, shake your arms out for about a minute, and then you could go back to that position. And really what that's going to do is that's going to break up your body signaling itself to just mold it physically into that place. And, it's a good way to eliminate back pain, stave off injury, and that sort of thing. But when we look at some other things, we're going to talk about common positions and correctives for those positions. And so the first thing we want to look at is, how does gravity affect posture? Okay, we look at this individual with a pretty flat back, put her in a pair of heels, we're going to lean her forward, okay? But, the body has a righting mechanism, so I'm not going to walk around, or she's not going to walk around leaning forward like that because that's weird looking, and she's probably going to fall on her face. So instead, she has to arch her back, stick her stomach out, arch her neck to get back up to neutral. And so the point being is that the body is smart, and it's always going to find its way back to neutral. And so as a result, what we want to do is just make changes to the way we stand and the way we sit, to these postures to make sure that this never becomes the case. And so these are what I call the big three sustained postures. These are the things that I see most when we're talking about, sitting, standing. You might have other things, but these are going to be the big things that cause us to develop bad posture. Okay, and so the first thing is stance. All right, we stand with our weight shifted forward onto our toes all the time. We stand with our feet close together. Oftentimes, we're going to shift weight to one side, and then we do what we call rib thrusting, where we thrust our ribs forward. As a result, this military posture that we talk about. When we talk about sitting, that's slouching over our tailbone, okay, and that's not standing up every 15 to 20 minutes. I call it laminating your ass, because really what we're doing when we're sitting for hours and hours is our body is literally laying down connective tissue. So it's covering our ass and a bunch of stuff that is not good. So standing up and breaking that stuff up every, once in a while is a very positive thing. and then breathing as well, and we'll get more into that later in our presentation. But we get into this position of, because our back is arched, we start to stress breathe as a result, where we start to hyperventilate. We start to get tension in our shoulders, as a result of just shrugging our shoulders and breathing through our neck muscles as opposed to our stomach, because we're in a bad position. So when we talk about stance corrections, just very quickly, the first thing that we want to do is shift weight into our heels versus our toes. I tell people you should be able to wiggle your toes. You should be able to lift your toes up off the ground. And when you're doing that, that is the best butt exercise that you will ever do, because now your butt is being forced to bear the full weight of gravity. Okay, and if you do nothing else, if you walk that way, you're less likely to develop osteoarthritis and osteopenia, because again, that is a vertical walking. That is the best bone building exercise that you can do. It's also the best butt building exercise, because your butt is being used with each step as it should be. The other thing would be to widen your stance, okay? Especially if you're experiencing like medial knee pain, meaning like the insides of your knees are hurting. Spread your legs wider, okay? Stand. It's not the most ladylike stance in the world, but it really does help to, strengthen your outer hip muscles and dissipate some of the what we call the torque, or the pressure on your inner knees. For those that are experiencing pronation, okay, if you have flat feet, roll your feet to the outside, meaning, we flatten our feet out when we squat down if we're pronated, and oftentimes we are, told to wear arches as a result of that, or inserts, that sort of thing. Simply roll your feet out, and try to stand barefoot and do that. That'll strengthen your foot muscles, what we call your intrinsic muscles, and help you to form an arch. And then as well, if you're standing with your kneecaps slightly flexed all the time, meaning your knees are bent, try to straighten them out and just stand with your legs straight. Okay, simple as that. Oftentimes when we don't do that, that causes knee pain. So all of those things together, and that's a lot. I mean, main thing is pick one or two to focus on for a couple of weeks and then move to the next thing. But the bottom line is this is going to be huge as far as, getting you into the right positions for success with what you're doing. Sitting corrections. As much as you can, sit on the edge of your chair as if you're going to stand up. And the reason that is that's going to make our butt a little bit more active, meaning I'm not just sitting there and hanging off of my ligaments anymore. I'm actually having to contract and sort of hold myself in that position, and it's almost like I'm going to do a squat, or I'm standing up from a squat. So I like to tell people, sit on the edge of your chair. That's just going to make you more active, and keep pressure on your butt muscles as opposed to just your tailbone. A lot of people that have like SI issues sit way back in their chair, and then stand up every 20 minutes or so, just for 1 to 2 minutes. Stand up, go to the bathroom, shake your arms out, that sort of thing. But that's really going to be a game changer as far as eliminating potential pain, as well as turning on the right muscles to be successful with core training. And so step 2, all right, let's talk about making your abs work for you. We're finally getting to abs in this presentation, all right? And so first and foremost, making your abs work for you means that we need to use our abs to do what they're built to do, okay? And we're going to practice an exercise called power breathing, okay? This is something that is done in Pilates a lot. And really the way power breathing works is it's turning on all of our ab muscles at the same time, okay? And so what we want to do is place our hand on our stomach. Okay, I want you to put your hand on your stomach. You're going to take a deep breath in and form what I call a Buddha belly. Okay, so all the air goes not only into your stomach, but also laterally into your ribs as well as your back. So I want you to think about filling everything with air, just long inhale. From there, you're going to purse your lips, blow out, and tighten your abs as hard as you can. Okay, I want you to think about like blowing up a balloon. All right. Think about long, long, long exhales. So you take a deep breath in for about 3 seconds, purse your lips, blow out, tighten your abs, and think about shrink wrapping your stomach to your midsection so it gets smaller. Okay, and I'm going to demo one. You should almost make a sound when you blow out. The surfers do this, and they tell them to make the sound of a crashing wave. So I'm just going to demonstrate this. Hopefully it doesn't sound too goofy over the recording, but I take a deep breath in with my nose. I purse my lips, and then I blow out. And, in martial arts, they'll make it sound like. as they blow out, or a crashing wave like. And sometimes that's going to help you to visualize and feel your abs. That sound sometimes helps. But the point being is that as we're blowing out and we're tightening, that's strengthening the ab muscles that are responsible for flattening your stomach. Okay, that is the most powerful exercise that you can do for your core, because that's the specific type of training that is going to make your stomach flatter as opposed to more bulky, as opposed to doing things like a crunch or a leg lift or anything where I'm not breathing in that way. We're just training the muscles on the outside of our stomach. Okay, and those things are built to grow larger like any other muscle. Whereas when we train what we call our transverse abdominis, the thing which wraps around our spine like a weight belt to compress our abs, then we're going to make our stomach stronger. Or we're going to make our stomach flatter. So again, not so important that you understand the geeky science behind this, but the point is practice your power breathing all the time. And so one position that I like for power breathing, and we use as a warm-up in our programs, is that we put our feet up on a chair. We call this 90-90 breathing, because when my feet are up on a chair like this, my back is going to flatten out. Okay, I put my hands on my stomach. I take a deep breath in through my nose, fill my belly with air, and then I blow out like I'm blowing out a balloon while tightening my abs and pressing my back into the ground. You'll notice the subject in this picture has a straw in his mouth, okay? And you can totally use straws or blow up balloons to help to really get the idea of tightening their abs, okay? And I'm going to include a video in my follow-up email to you on what I call straw breathing, where I teach you to breathe through a straw and tighten things up. And don't worry, we're going to have videos on how to do all this stuff as well. But the point being is that doing this, and I'd say throughout the day, maybe 3 sets of 10 breaths, you're going to keep your abs on, and it's the best exercise that you can do all the time. That is the most important thing. And if you never do anything else that I teach you, do this, and you will have a flat stomach. Okay, so this is really, really important. And again, anywhere from 10 to 20 breaths, at a time. Our next exercise that we're going to send a video on is what we call our 90-90 hip lift. Okay, and so it's the same idea as power breathing. The only difference is that we're going to press through our heels, and we're going to lift our butt just about an inch off the floor. Okay, and again, we're going to breathe in this position. So I'm pressing my back into the ground, I lift my tailbone slightly off the ground, and I just take about 4 to 5 deep breaths. I repeat that about 4 times, and again, I try to do about 3 sets throughout the day. What that's going to do is use our muscles to put us back into more of a neutral posture. It's going to readjust our pelvis. It's going to make us straighter. It's going to get that big arch out of our back. Okay, and as a result of that, we're going to be in the right position to core train or simply give us a flat stomach. Okay, so if you do the first 2 drills that I'm teaching you here, you get huge value because you develop a flat stomach. That's really all that you need. All right, we're going to go much farther than that, and we're going to talk about core training and everything else. But these 2 things are money exercises because they do exactly that. They get you back into the right position, and they teach you to keep your back flat, as well as develop real stability where you need it. Okay, so these are truly the keys to developing a flat stomach. So once we have our power breathing down, and we practiced in these what we call our unloaded positions, from there we're going to train these things, okay? And so we perform this sequence as part of our Core Restore program in our class with every workout because we want to use these to reestablish neutral. But this is going to be the key for core training, is that we want to practice breathing in these fundamental training positions, okay? And so for us, 3 of our go-to positions that we train a lot in are going to be plank, side plank, and dead bug. All right, and we'll get a little bit more into those. But what I like to do is simply hold a plank in a neutral position, meaning our back is not arched, it's flat or a little bit rounded, and simply breathe. So holding in that position, deep breath in, blow out, and what these positions are going to do is act as amplifiers to make this breathing effect more powerful. These are the bedrock of our core training program because these are what we call isometric core training exercises. So a plank, as opposed to a crunch, is not going to make your abs bigger, but when it's done properly, it's going to help us to compress our spine or compress our stomach, meaning it's going to make our stomach flatter, and more contour to our body. And so really these are the type of training exercises that we want, as opposed to side bends, crunches, leg lifts, that kind of thing, to really build a flat stomach, because they're not causing our stomach to become bigger. Okay, and we'll get more into these. So with plank, oftentimes what I see with plank is that when, I'm sure everybody's done a plank, but when we're doing it on the floor, it's way too hard. For a lot of people, they're worried too much about, performing the plank and holding their upper body up, and, the arms start to fatigue, and we're not really getting the core in that position. And so what we like to do is start people elevated. Okay, you could start elevated on a step, on a chair, on a table, or even on the wall. And the idea is to simply adopt the proper position. Right now, when we're practicing this stuff, I want you to think of this as a warm-up. We're not, or if you've never done core training before, this is your core training. We're not trying to make it super, super hard. We're trying to learn the position. Okay, and so the right position is that the back is, the hips are in line with the shoulders. It's flat like a table. I should be able to serve a plate of food off of somebody's back, whereas if I start to arch my back, that plate of food is going to slide off. And even a little bit rounded, if possible. I might want my spine even a little bit curved. And so if we look at this position here, her elbows are up on a table. We've taken the upper body component, we've made the upper body component a little bit easier so she can focus more on her core. And so don't just go down to the floor and start to, breathe. It's going to be difficult because we're loading this position. Start up on a chair, on a wall, and just practice your breathing. Hold in this spot, take a deep breath in, squeeze, blow out, and tighten. Okay, and what you can also do is squeeze a ball, like a children's play ball or a dodge ball or a soft ball. Not actually a soft ball like you hit, but a ball that is soft, that is like a dodge ball. You squeeze it between your knees as you blow out, and that's going to help you to feel your abs. Okay, and so if you're not getting that, squeezing that is a good way to help. Okay, and I want you to hold that position and simply take 8 deep breaths, where you take a deep breath in, you blow out, and you tighten. Power breathing. Okay, again, if you're unable to hold in that position at all, then that might be your core training, and that might be where you start. But that really is the foundation for developing, again, strength with a flat stomach. Side plank is going to be our next position. Okay, and side plank is one of those things that is a great exercise to tone the obliques and all of that, but is often done wrong. Okay, in yoga, side plank is done with the hands straight, and that's a great position for strengthening the shoulders, but that's not our goal here. So what we want to do is come onto our elbow, make sure the elbow is stacked right under the shoulder. Okay, and start with the knees bent. Okay, you'll notice that in level 1, that's what we're doing here. Okay, and I want everybody to start with level 1. That's going to make sure that our arms don't fatigue as opposed to our core, and that's really the key when we're doing anything, with our arms. And so again, holding that position, you just take a deep breath in, you blow out, and you tighten. Again, 8 deep breaths on each side. You can also, again, squeeze a ball between your knees there to help to fill your abs a little bit more. As you become better at that exercise, then, we can start to straighten our legs out, do more interesting things that we see more here in level 2 and level 3. But I would say, when we're talking warm-up specifically, keep it very, very simple. Again, you don't want to overwhelm your arms or extremities. We're just warming up. So keep that in mind. And finally, our dead bug hold. Okay, and so with dead bug, the key with dead bug is, again, we're bringing our knees to our chest and our arms off the ground. In gymnastics, this is called a hollow body position. Okay, and so we see this individual whose legs are straight, his arms are behind him, but you'll notice that his back is also flush against the floor, and that's what we want. That's going to be the key with dead bug. We're not arching our back excessively. We're able to breathe in that position. So again, don't make it maximally hard. What we could do to make it easier is we can bend our knees, pull our knees to our chest, put our head on the ground, and pull our arms to our chest as well, and just have our arms and our knees very close together. I can press my hands into my knees and tighten at the same time, again, to help to feel my core. So again, I take a deep breath in, knees are bent, hands are against my knees, take a deep breath in, blow out, press my hands into my knees and tighten. As you get stronger, then you can straighten your arms out and your legs out and breathe in dead bug in this position. But what I'd say is start very, very simple, very, very easy, because that's your warm-up.
And so finally, we do all these things. We work on plank, we work on dead bug, we work on these, these practice exercises. From there, we do want to progressively challenge our core. Okay, and again, core training is not a bad thing. We do want to do core training. We just want to do the right type of core training. One of the big errors that I see with core training in general in the gym is like people doing thousands of crunches. And regardless of what exercise that you do, we don't go in and do thousands of, curls with a 5-pound dumbbell because we get nothing out of it. We don't do 5,000 presses overhead because, again, our muscles adapt to it and we get very little strengthening or development as a result. And the core is the same way. We have to progressively challenge the core, meaning we have to make stuff harder, and that's going to be the primary goal of anything that we do. And in our program, we're going to show you some different ways to do that. But the goal is that we want to make stuff harder via varying the angle or making, varying the load, which I'll show you how to do to give us more of a challenge. And the goal with our program, when we're talking about strength, is to strengthen the force couples, which create a posterior pelvic tilt, or in layman's terms, flat back. That would be abs and butt. Okay, and so that's, luckily that's what everybody wants. Those are also the key to better posture. So it's nice that all of these things work together. And so when we talk about core training, crunches versus planks, if you've watched the majority of this presentation, I'm probably not a huge fan of crunches. But again, crunches are things that involve repetitive in-range spinal flexion. Okay, if you look at Hans Moleman here down on the right, one of my favorite characters from The Simpsons, Hans Moleman is in a crunch position all the time. Okay, as we are when we sit at desks. When we use our phones, when we do all of these things. And so would it make sense that if we're doing this position all day, that training this position is going to do anything for us? Probably not. Whereas with, we look at this individual up here on the top, her core is ripped. She has nice abs, but again, she's standing a little bit taller. The difference is that a plank versus a crunch, a plank is isometric stabilization. A plank is not involving movement. It's actually preventing the extension of my back into the ground. And really that's the type of training that we want, because we're not getting any thing that's going to make my abs bulkier by actually moving my stomach. And we're also preventing excess motion, which causes things like back pain, disc herniations, neck and shoulder issues, that kind of thing. And so if we look at these two stomachs, obviously these people are ripped, they have a very well-defined stomach, but when you look at, from a definition standpoint, very well developed at the top, but not so much at the bottom. And in my experience, the reason why is, we have a lot of exercise that involve crunches and bringing our shoulders to our knees, okay, where we're doing a crunch type motion, but we don't focus nearly as much on bringing our knees to our shoulders, okay, those type of exercises that really strengthen the lower part of our abs and develop definition. And unfortunately, that plays out in the fact that we have lower back issues, different things like that, because again, that same motion of bringing my knees to my chest is also going to create a posterior pelvic tilt and flatten my back out. And so, when we're talking core training from a practical perspective, even if you were going to do, leg lifts and crunches and things like that, we want to do things that involve bringing our knees to our chest. So one exercise that I actually like a lot is called a reverse crunch, where I bring my knees to my elbows. So it's kind of like the reverse motion of a crunch. That's great because, again, it's getting us back into the right position and it's going to strengthen our lower abs, whereas, a crunch is going to do pretty much the opposite, arch the back, get us into bad positions. And so it's from a muscular perspective, just very quickly, it's a rectus abdominis versus a oblique dominant strategy. And all that means is that when I do a crunch, the muscle that's working mainly is what I call my rectus abdominis. So my knees are coming to my chest, okay, and that muscle puts me into this bad postural position that we see up here on the right. Whereas when I'm bringing my knees to my chest, I get a flatter back. And I'm working my obliques as well as my transverse abdominis, which are all muscles that are going to flatten my stomach more so than my rectus. So most people are what we call rectus dominant, whereas what we want somebody is stronger obliques, stronger TVA, and sort of getting us back into the right position. So let's look at two examples of core training that we use a lot in our program. Okay, so this is dead bug position. All right, and really the key with dead bug, with all of the exercises that we do, is we start at the top, okay, with the dead bug pullover. All right, I have two dumbbells in my hands. I might be holding a medicine ball, whatever it may be. My feet are off the ground, so I'm in a loaded dead bug position. I take a deep breath in through my nose, all right, so I fill my belly with air as much as I can. And then I fully exhale. I take a deep breath in, start to lower the weight behind me, and blow out as hard as I physically can. So I'm blowing, blowing, blowing as I'm moving the weight behind me, which is going to make stuff harder. Okay, fully exhale with the weight behind me. 3 to 4 seconds. The exhale should be very long. And then I bring the dumbbells back to the top. Okay, and so we coordinate the movement of our arms and our legs with our blowing out. So I take a deep breath in at the top, I blow out, and I pull over, fully exhale, and come back. I want you to think that the key to this strategy, this program, with our exercises is not how many reps can I do, in a period of 40 seconds, or if I give you, say, 6 reps to do, how quickly can I do it? It's actually the opposite. How slowly can I do that? How much tension can I keep on my abs at all times? Okay, so as you're blowing out and pulling over, really think about moving slowly, blowing out, blowing out as hard as you can, feeling the tension in your abs and really connecting with the exercise in that way, and you're going to be successful. The whole thing is we want to keep as much tension on our abs as possible. And again, when you start to feel it in your arms and your legs more, you start to fatigue, then you come down and you rest some. So, if that were the case here, I would just bring my legs down onto the ground, or if my legs were extended out and I started to feel it more in my legs, I'd just pull my knees to my chest. Make it easier, rest for a little while, and then go back to it. If you need to take 20 to 30 seconds off or whatever it may be, that's perfectly fine. The key with this one is that we don't want to get to a point where our extremities, meaning our arms and our legs, start to dominate the movement over our core. And that can tend to happen when we get fatigued. So that's something to be mindful of. When we talk about plank, same rules apply. Okay, so you see here, I'm holding in a plank. I take a deep breath in through my belly, fill my belly with air, reach out and press into the ground, and then blow out and tighten as hard as I can. With plank, more so than dead bug, I'm going to be pressing into the ground because now I'm in more of a loaded position. So I want to press hard into the ground and fully blow out at that point. I'm not even going to try to blow out as I reach for the ground. I'm going to blow out as I press into the ground, okay, and really put pressure into the ground because that's going to contract the part of the abs that we're trying to work. Okay, and that's for both arms and legs. Okay, so I might be doing a reach like I'm doing here, or I might be doing like a step out where I step out with my foot. Okay, I simply step out with my foot, press my foot into the ground hard, and blow out at that point. Again, the same rules apply. Slow movement. Feet come back together. Take a deep breath in. Reach out to the other side and blow. Really, that's the key, is the breathing and the blowing. If you do that, you'll be extremely successful with our exercises. And so now we've come time to practice. Okay, and practice is simply performing our exercises as a circuit. If you're doing this seminar in person, we are going to do this circuit together. I'm going to coach you through it. However, if you are on your own, I've included a series of videos, or I've included a video that goes through this circuit with you. Okay. Again, I want you to pick the level that works for you. Okay. And I really want you to move slow with control. Remember, it's not about the number of reps. It's about connecting with the exercise, keeping our breath going, keeping the tension on our abs. So with all of these, move slow, move with control, and use your abs properly. All right. Good luck with the circuit. Hopefully that gives you an introduction into what we do. And so as far as practical applications go for our program, what I challenge all of you to do is to adopt 1 to 2 postural cues that you do for 4 to 8 weeks to iron out, the long-term causes of, our belly pooch, some people call it. Perform your power breathing for 1 minute, 3 to 4 times per day to train the muscles which flatten your stomach. And again, this is something that you can do all day. If you only did these first 2 things, you will develop a flat stomach. But these are things that are probably the most essential because they're things that we do all the time. And so doing these first 2 things, the posture and the breathing, is going to truly be the key to getting a flat stomach. From there, with any of your core training, whether you're doing our program or not, I want you to throw out crunches, and I want you to think about prioritizing isometric core training, so planks, dead bugs, things of that nature, even things where you're lifting your legs, doing reverse crunches, things like that. Better situation than a crunch, because it's training the part of the abs that put our pelvis back into a more neutral position, and that's what we want. And finally, I'm looking for 10 beta testers for our initial program cycle. Okay, and if you're doing this, if you're watching our webinar, this would be the online version of that. Okay, and what that is that's it's a daily circuit that you do at home, as well as just some simple postural exercise that I'm going to ask you to do several days a week. It's a 4-week program. Our goal is to, again, develop an authentically flat stomach and to make some progress in that time. So if you're interested in that, please contact me for more information. But otherwise, thank you so much for viewing our presentation. I really hope you got a lot out of this. I really hope that you enjoy the program that I also include with this seminar. I include my book and our 90-day program as well. A different 90-day program, but one that will be very beneficial to you as well. So thank you so much, and I look forward to serving you more.